Tonight we're going to be teaching on the heart of hospitality. It's actually a lesson that Tony Antelon did for the shepherds, and I've sort of typed it up and put it in OneNote, etc. But hospitality is the reception and treatment of guests and strangers in a warm, generous way. The root of the word actually, the root of the word hospitality comes from the word for hospital. It's first recorded, 1300, 1350, and it's basically describing a lodging place for pilgrims and travelers. Today, the word hospitality represents institutions that provide Medicare and treatment for ill patients. We are so fortunate to have Medicare in this country. It's unbelievable. I think we take it for granted that you can just go into a hospital and you won't be kicked out because you don't have insurance or something. They'll figure that out afterwards. Likewise, you could actually consider the church a hospital whose purpose is to heal those who are spiritually sick. Matthew 9, verse 35 says, Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest. So what did Jesus say, guys? Look at all the people with problems. You'll never have a problem finding people with problems. We go, I don't want people with problems. Well, why? You had problems. God fixed a lot of those problems. Now it's time to pass it forward. Mark 2:17, on hearing this, Jesus said to them, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Hospitality, unfortunately, has been in a steep decline for many years. I think something that really accelerated it was the COVID-19 pandemic. I think this had a significant impact on the decrease of the practice of hospitality and the increase of selfishness. People got used to having me time, my space, my house. Don't come in, keep at a distance. And when you do something, if you're selfish long enough, being unselfish seems abnormal. And I think for a lot of people, being selfless feels abnormal. I've heard comments like, well, I don't want people around the house every night in Christian households. Why not? Why not? Well, I need me time. I need time to recover. That's what a quiet time is for. Jesus was always people running after him. You need to be incredibly grateful that you have a home. There are so many people that don't. Some of us, it would be good for us to take a trip to the third world and realize how privileged we are. The study aims to evaluate our hearts towards practicing hospitality by gaining a more profound conviction regarding this principal value, ultimately spurring us on to change where we need. With the help of our God, we can once again ignite the biblical practice of hospitality, demonstrating the heart of Jesus as we minister to others. Matthew 19:26, Jesus looked at them and said, with man it is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Luke 9:2, and he sent them out to proclaim the good news and heal the sick. Jesus was all about getting people, bringing them into for him, doing miracles, physical hospital, then a spiritual hospital, and loving up on them. I think most people leave God because they feel unloved in the church. And the reason they do is they forgot that they were not meant to come to church to receive love, but to give love. We get our needs met by God. So it says God is our rescuer, God is our helper, God is our defender. It doesn't say the church is our helper, the church is. This is a place where we practice love towards one another, not sit there and go, why aren't people loving me? You find that if you become a very loving person, people find you very easy to love. Quite a few points in here. It's one of those fly-through lessons. Point number 1, hospitality is a command of God. Romans 12:13. Share with the Lord's people who are in need, practice hospitality. So in those days, as in Jesus' day, and also in our days, Christians couldn't afford to stay in hotels. So when we have our conference and all the Samoans come over, They're sleeping on your floor. All right. Christian hospitality is a way to extend yourself beyond your material gifts. You go, well, I can't afford to give. People go, I wish I had more money to host. Well, just have people around and have them for a cup of tea. Just tell them, I've got no food, but come around for a cup of tea. I'd love you. You know, so many people just want to sit down and have a drink with somebody. It's also a way to meet the need of the fellowship that encourages others. Hospitality is a foundational principle both in Jewish and Christian ethics. Hebrews 13:2. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. Now, sometimes we sort of go, oh, there's this guy on the street and he needs a night to be put up and I don't know, I don't trust him. What if he steals my phone? What if he steals this? What if he steals that? What if he steals that? But even in that topic, you're like, man, I have so many possessions that I'm afraid for him to steal them. What I love about going to Samoa is there are still houses there with no windows and doors on them. You know why? You know why they had houses, all right? First of all, it's air conditioning, lets the wind through. But Scotty said to me, secondly, we've got nothing to steal. The people that actually put doors and walls on their houses, it's only when they start getting a television. It's only when they start doing this. And you think, so what if somebody runs off with your television? I've had my television stolen before. So what? They must have really needed the money, right? So I think, you've got to be wise. You've got to make sure your passports aren't there. But we go so selfish and we go, you know what? If you've got so many things that you're afraid to have a stranger stay over, maybe you need to lose a few things. And maybe God has put that person in your life to relieve you of a few things. Jesus turned the hierarchy upside down by instructing his followers to invite those who had no social status and could not reciprocate being given to. Luke 14:12, then Jesus said to his hosts, when you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or sisters, your relatives or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back and so be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. So, got to understand that God is commanding us here, go give to complete strangers. I have my telephone number on the website, which means I get some people who phone me and goes, we're the church, and then I get some absolute crackpots call me, all right? But I get people go, hi, minister, have you got any money for me? All right? And I always think God is testing me. So every single person we go and do. If I'm not around, I'll get somebody else to do it. If I'm not physically in town, I know Brooks helped me on several occasions. And I said, just go and, if he needs $50, it's genuine, just give him $50. That's what we have benevolence for. Now, I also keep everybody's number because I've got one guy who calls me every sort of month on clock, okay? And do you know what I mean? I go, mate, you are not in problem. Like, you've got money, you've just figured out how to get ministers to give you money. So I'm not stupid either, okay? But I'm like, well, what's wrong with giving somebody $50 that I don't know? That's also part of hospitality. God invites sinful human beings to dine at his banquet table of salvation. We've got to get rid of this sort of selfish, first world, this guy's awkward, he's a pain in the backside, he smells a bit, and all like that. Guys, we've got to love. I think there are individuals in the Bible, individuals such as Martha. This one example of hospitality shows a home open to people traveling. Luke 10:38. And Jesus and his disciples were on their way. He came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. Wow. The Lord came to the village. Did she think he was the Lord? Most probably not at that point. She must have thought, well, he's a good guy. He's a teacher. He's making a lot of noise in town. And she had the Lord come to town, into her home. Overseers and leaders in the church, this is a must. It's one of the things. Again, if you're a Bible talk leader or any type of leader, do you open your home? Or it's like, well, I've got a young child and I've got a this and I've got a that. It doesn't say be hospitable unless you. 1 Timothy 3:2. Now an overseer is to be above reproach, faithful to his wife, temperate, self-control, respectable, hospitable, able to teach. So one of the areas that you need to be above reproach in is, are you hospitable? Titus 1:8, rather he must be hospitable, one who loves what is good, who is self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined. Hospitality was an important duty and respected virtue in the ancient world. Any traveling Christians would seek out and probably stay with fellow believers. In addition, the first century churches often met in the homes. There may be a time when we actually don't meet in a hall, when we meet in homes. I know when I was in London and the church goes through different financial challenges, sometimes there's just, hey, we're meeting in homes for 6 months, because that works as well. We must offer hospitality both to Christians and non-Christians with no view of what do I get out of it. We cannot go, well, this guy needs a place to live. Well, will he become a Christian? I'm only interested if he becomes a Christian. No, you give just to give. Both single and married households must practice hospitality. Hospitality isn't just the responsibility of the wives or the sisters. It applies to overseers such as husbands and brothers. So brothers and husbands, we need to lead the way. The women, some of our women, and I'll talk about some examples in a minute, they love to host. They absolutely love to host. But you've got to be the guy that initiates it. To practice means to perform or habitually or usually. Basically, this means this has got to be part of your character. Ask yourself, what has to change in your household in order for it to be a place of hospitality? I think some of the single households have a lot to really grow in this. It's great to hear of the Parramatta household, and the girls are great, and Grace is in there and she's loving it. But is every household really like that? Right? Would Grace come into that household and go, wow, everybody's so close here, they're so friendly, they always have family times on Sunday nights together, this is such a family. Unfortunately, sometimes it's the opposite way. People come into the house and it makes them fall away. Why? Because you have 4 selfish people all being selfish with each other. It only takes one person in the household to have a conviction on it to change the situation. And some of us do need to hang our heads pretty low at the moment, because that has happened recently. Point 2, disciples use their possessions and resources to love. Our home is an extension of God's church. For some, it may be the closest thing they will ever see when it comes to Christ. Sometimes people come to your home, but they don't come to church. Sometimes it's difficult to get to church. But if they see the church in your home, then they will come to church. We must remember to consistently love people and use things, not love things and use people. Kerry's gone up to Queensland to see her sister. It's an overdue trip. So what I do is I pull out all my clothes. I'm pulling out every shoe. Manny's face is lighting up. Okay, and I'm pulling out all my possessions and go, I've got too many. And I'm making piles of, they need to go, I don't need that, I don't need to go, and I go, I'm going to Fiji in a couple of weeks. So what Manny doesn't get, the whole of Fiji will get. Okay, but it's like, you got to understand, I go to Fiji, some of those guys, they have one pair of shoes. I go and I give them a pair of shoes. They'll wear them they'll walk around in them doesn't matter if they fit. I've given one because some of the Samoan brothers' feet are size 14. They just cut a hole in the top and just flat walk around. I got the pastor's shoes on, man. I'm flat father. Like little kids and they're 30 years old. It's good for us to see that, because you go, well, how many shoes do I have? Do I really need them? Have I worn them in the last 6 months? As we practice hospitality, we can demonstrate the heart of Jesus to others. A lack of or absence of hospitality reflects our priorities and convictions. If God is love, then the source of love comes from him. With this kind of love, we can overlook offenses and sins committed against us while we host others or have people to stay with us. 1 Peter 4:7 says, the end of all things is near, therefore be alert and of sober mind so that you can pray. Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use a gift, whatever gift you have received, to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in various forms. So a few things. We had Manny and Effie live with us for 6 months. And we have a washing machine. And, and Manny saw the washing machine. And he put everything in the washing machine. Now, when I mean everything, all right, I'm like, put the foot in it goes, all right? Put it on, and this thing, boom, boom, boom. Like, well, what's that noise? All right? We're like, what? And Kerry's like, he's going to blow up the washing machine. Well, he said they all fitted in. But what I realized is Manny had never been taught how to use a washing machine properly. All right? Okay. That's just the truth. But that's why he lived with us for 6 months, because he's learned a lot. But I also remember, and this is how worldly we can get. So, as you may know, we were in Brisbane for some time, not doing well spiritually. And we had wealth. So we moved to LA, to the church in LA, to do better. And so I took our kids and my wife, and we moved into this house, and we bought furniture, new furniture, not, too expensive. I think the couch was $700 as opposed to the one I had before, which was thousands. And we had a Bible talk. So we hosted our first Bible talk. Okay? 35 people turned up. So we went from no Bible talk, not doing well spiritually, 35 people turned up. And one of them had a young daughter, and she took some butter in her hand and ran it straight down the new couch. I flipped my lid. But I woke up next day and I went, that just showed me how unspiritual I had become. I'm now worried about a couch. You see, before I had wealth, every couch I had was secondhand. It was off the side of the road, or it was something. So you bounce or put butter on my couch, I'm like, whatever. I'm sure it's had worse on there before. Does that make sense? It's like, and I'm not saying there's something wrong with a nice couch, but it's a possession. So what I realized was possessions have become more important to me than people. Is that how you feel? Offering hospitality to each other is also a gift of love that came from God. Where we spend our eternity is our choice, reflected in what we do here. Kevin actually read this scripture before. Thanks for stealing it, Kev. Matthew 25, 31 and 46. And it talks about the judgment day, about the sheep and the goats. But what it talks about is if you don't practice hospitality, it's very, very clear. It goes, truly, I tell you, whenever you did for these least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Then he will say to those on the left, depart from me, you are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. It's this serious. It's about hospitality. He goes, if you're not a hospitable person, you'll burn in hell. And that's not me, that's Jesus. He's going, this is part of your Christianity. And yet, I think some people still are in houses, they go into their rooms, they close their doors, leave me alone, all that sort of selfish. You're not a Christian. You may evangelize, you may pray, but you're not living the life, the heart life that God wants. When Jesus comes, he'll separate us. And he'll separate us into the loving and the unloving. Our life and the Bible have to match the teachings of the Bible. 1 Timothy 4:16, watch your life and doctrine closely, persevere in them, because if you do, you will save both yourself and hearers. It's just, hey, well, I know first principles, I'm studying the Bible with people, yeah. But what do you like at home? That's the real test, isn't it? Is do you get home and you're up early and you're giving people coffee and you're doing the washing up and, every time my wife goes away, I do a deep clean. I'm stripping everything out. I'm getting all the cleaning out and all the things in the corner, all those things you don't normally clean. It's my opportunity for her to come back and go, wow. I went through the fridge today and I looked at every little thing, right? And it's eating date, eat by, 2022, 2020. I'm cleaning out the fridge and did like this. And then I'm like, I didn't realize this. Olives eat within 2 weeks. We opened this 4 years ago. It looks all right to me, you know what I mean? But that, it's like, my wife is so good at hospitality, she practices it so much. When she goes away, I want her to come back and go, wow. She always keeps an immaculate house, and you know that. A hospitable person does things to make others feel special. A hospitable person is a giver, has a servant's heart, are in tune with the needs of others. You're not looking at your needs. Most of us don't have needs. We have wants. Some of us may have needs, that's why we have benevolence. But most of us, we have wants. A hospitable person is eager to expend their energy, time, money to serve and encourage others. Luke 10, verse 25. On one occasion, an expert of the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law, he replied. How do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. You've answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away. Leaving the man, he passed by on the other side. A priest happened to go down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to that place, saw him, passed on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and where he saw him, he took pity on him. When he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took the 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? The expert of the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. So what is the opposite of being hospitable? Not getting involved. Having a religious heart. These guys were super religious. They were so busy being religious, but when it came to their home life, when nobody was looking, they didn't have the opportunity. They saw the opportunity and they waved it past. What's it like living with you? Are you a hospitable person? Are you a loving person? Do you do lots of cooking? Is your home just brimming over? People love to stay over. There's a spare bed, there's a spare mattress, there's a spare everything. In Matthew 22, Jesus gave the same commands which he called the greatest commandments. When God gave the 10 commandments, the first 4 were about loving God, and the last 6 were about loving other people. Our response in how hospitable we are towards each other will make others feel special to be part of the kingdom of God. In other words, your ministry starts in your home. You can study the Bible with people, and if they see you have a bad attitude with someone at home, or they come into your home and it's not hospitable, they go, you talk a good talk, but you sure don't walk one. To be hospitable, the hospitable person puts others before themselves. Philippians 2:3, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of others. The only reason really why people are not hospitable is they go, man, it just takes a lot. You've got to clean up afterwards. They're going to steal your food, eat your food, and it costs money. It costs money. When I was in England as a single guy, we didn't have a lot of money. But we always had a pot of food on the stove. And what I would do is I'd get a chicken, and we'd eat the chicken Saturday night, Friday night, whatever night, and then I'd boil the bones, and I'd make a stock. All right? And then, a little bit of chicken loaf, and I'd buy a bag of potatoes this big, all right? Because it was like $5 for one of those and $7 for one of those big ones. And then in that stock, I would just boil potatoes, and then I'd mash them, which made it thick. And anybody, and we'd have, this was in Birmingham, so that we had Jamaicans there. So we didn't have bread, we had bun. You know what that bun, okay? It's like a sweet bread. And we always had bun and soup on the stove. So when anybody came round, because it gets cold in England, there'd always be bun and there'd always be soup. And we had so many people there. We had a group that started with 6. It grew to 100 in 3 years. Why? Everybody was poor, all right? We had great music, all right, because they were Jamaicans, basically a Jamaican ministry. And what you find is if you're hospitable, and this is always one of the ways with God, if you're hospitable, people start bringing food. Now, that's not why we did it. But then people knew there was a home where food was accepted and feed, and then they'd turn up with drums, literally drums of chicken wings and chicken, and they're like, you go, man, I end up with more than I gave. But that's the principle. If you give, it will come back. That's not why you do it, but that is what happens. Point 4, guests need to see our family's faith and love through hospitality. Love and faith are both seen in what we do. Now, I have to say there are some exemplary people in the church when it comes to hospitality. Pete and Paulina love to do it. If I took the marriage event away from Pete and Paulina, Pete would be ticked. He'd be like, marriage events at mine, man. Like, we're the Wades. It comes to hours, okay? Even when we go on a marriage retreat, Pete, it's just a tradition. Pete cooks on the barbecue. It's just like, they are exemplary. And so many of you in Parramatta, how many of you have sat on their couch, cried your eyes out, been patted, pray, okay, look at that, okay, pray, and off you go. It would be a fact to say that their hospitality has saved souls. has saved souls. The Becks, another great example. House, always open, always open, always open. Jeremy and Roz, always giving. The kids, always giving. Takashi, man, you want to cook? Okay. He goes, we have a young prophets group on Saturday morning. He came over on Saturday afternoon. He said, I cooked this morning. He said, let's have a look. He has these photos. I'm like, so when are you coming here, mate? I mean, he's up at 4 a.m. cooking and whatever. I was like, this is mind-blowing. Where did he learn that? His mother and father. His mother and father. Now, some of us have selfish parents. That is not an excuse not to repent. It's not. I don't know how to cook. Learn. All right, it's the age of information. YouTube. Boom. That's it. There's actually a chef called Marion. She was on one of the first Master Chefs. And he has these curries. He goes, okay, it's 4 packets. Packet number 1, pour it in. Packet number 2, pour it in. Pour some water. Packet number 3, pour it in. Packet number 4. And so Aaron Ha, who leads our church in China, was limited in his cooking ability because his dad is a professional chef. So he never had to cook. So I taught him this. And every marriage retreat, it's Marion curry. He's got, I can cook one thing. It's Marion curry, okay? Well, have your one thing, or your 2 thing, or your 3 thing. But learn. It's great to hear the sisters, Grace going to the sister's house. It sounds like I want to move into that house. That was a fantastic house. It's like, but that's what it should be, okay? I'm not coming to your house. It's okay. But that's how it should be, shouldn't it? All right? Are you a great example? Are your Sunday night family times ones that you are jealous of, as in we're not combining with another household. This is our family time on Sunday night. We're not doing that. This is our family. And that's what it should be. Groups that want to not meet on Sunday night have a problem. All right? We need our family time on Sunday. If you're visiting the church every Sunday night, we recommend everybody goes home. You play board games, not watch telly. We have our family over last Sunday. We had our kids all over. We had a meal together and everything like that. It's part of our culture. It's hospitality. And as a result, my daughter's boyfriend came to the conference. My son's living with us now. His girlfriend is, coming around to things. She hasn't come to church. Our house is the church for her. Being hospitable shows the depth of our love or exposes our lack of love. In 1 Corinthians 13:2, if I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains but don't have love, I have nothing. Too often people go, what's wrong with the church? Well, if there's a problem in the church and you're not sorting it, then you're not being loving. Because that's all a leader like. The difference between a leader and a non-leader is a leader sees something and does something about it, and a non-leader doesn't. And then there are people that don't have a title, but they become leaders because they actually act like a leader. Every Christian needs to see a problem and just get on with it. Point 5, hospitality aids fruitfulness. The expansion of the gospel in the early church was mainly through preaching the word in homes. Acts 16:33, at that hour of night, the jailer took them and washed their wounds. Then immediately he and his household were baptized. The jailer brought them into his house and set a meal before them. He was filled with joy because he had come to believe in God and his whole household. So here you've got the jailer who became a Christian, and as a result of him then becoming a Christian, he went from, obviously, being a nasty man looking after these 2 guys, to come into my home. It was part of his repentance. So Paul and Silas went from being in prison to being in his home. Priscilla and Aquila used their home to teach Apollos more about Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Acts 18:24. Meanwhile, a Jew named Apollos, a native of Alexandria, came to Ephesus. He was a learned man and a thorough knowledge of scriptures. He had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and he spoke with great fervor and talked about Jesus accurately, though he knew only the baptism of John. He began to speak boldly in the synagogue. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they invited him to their home and explained to him the way of God more adequately. There is something very special about bringing somebody into your home and studying the Bible with them. Most people look at it, you're pretty demanding putting the scriptures on them and go, I wonder what you'll really like. Which is why we study the Bible, have people around the house the whole time studying the Bible. You go, well, meet my wife, meet my dog, You know what I mean? Do you want a cup of tea? And they go, oh, so that's what you're like. It's like if you want to get to know somebody, go to their home. That's how you find out. But it's important. They then feel pulled into the family. And there's a joke and they get to know you, and maybe they see a picture on the wall that they relate to, or a footy jersey. Our house is very, very strategically planned. You walk in the kitchen, all right? There's the table, there's the coffee machine, there's the fridge. That's the first thing you see. Then there's some footy jerseys, some Queensland footy jerseys, all right? So every Aussie that comes in goes, oh, I'm not going for them, or oh, yeah, I'm going for them. One of those, okay. And then as they walk through, you have the dogs, you have the living room, and then if it's a man, they come to my office, and I've got my swords, and I've got my this and that. But it's very strategic. People come through, and there's things for them to connect to so that we can have a conversation outside of Jesus. Do you even think like that? Or is the first thing that happens when you come into your house, there's just all these smelly shoes, and that's the reception? That is, I have a pet hate for that. Right? Then all those shoes, and that's the first thing that you see. That is not hospitality. That's like, can I turn around and go out? Okay? Our homes, we need to be used in this matter. And again, there are some really, really great examples of people coming round to certain people's houses. I think Keanu's house is quite good. It's right opposite the university. People come around there. I think the sister's house in University of New South Wales, there's people always around there. We have staff there, all sorts of different situations. But we need to be bringing people to our house again and again and again. I think the brothers in Parramatta have a pretty funky, cool house. Everybody comes, and they've had some different houses over the time. Some are questionable, but they've always been hospitable. I think that would be the right way to put it. Okay. See, hospitality is in the heart. Okay. Point 6, do you have a house or a home? What is the difference between a house and a home? A house is a building at a particular address without the peace of God. No matter how grand that house may be, it remains lacking. When we were in Brisbane and we weren't doing well spiritually on our own, we had a walloping great house. I mean, it was enormous. Okay, so there's my wife, me, and the 2 kids. We had 4 lounge rooms, pool table, bar, swimming pool, you name it. That was just downstairs. And we were miserable. We were absolutely miserable. Because there was no church, and the Spirit of God just wasn't with us. Then we moved to LA, and there was some fights. We moved into this tiny little house, and my kids didn't have their own room and everything like that. And we had some real clashes. But that brought the family together. It's pretty Pete wasn't here, but we used to have these parties, and it was just reggae dancing all night long, and I mean, we would just be rocking, okay? And we reinvented ourselves and went, all this space, and, I got the big house, I thought it'll be great, the kids can have their own room and have their own television, and I never saw them. I bought into that, I never saw them. And then we were back in this small little place, and we all had to organize, and we all had to cook for each other, and that's where we found family again. And we started really hosting. Hospitality allows disciples to let visitors experience the peace of God in a safe, warm, and inviting home. Jesus prepared a beautiful home for us in heaven that we must imitate his example here. So it talks about we're going to our home. It doesn't say we're going to a youth hostel in heaven, all right, or we're going to a hotel where you can all have your nice private room and be selfish, and there's going to be a gym there, all right, and there's going to be partitions between every soul, and you can all have your nice me time, and then, just pop out and see God occasionally. Okay, no walls. Okay? No barriers. None of that. No me time. Just pure God time. Does that sound attractive to you? Maybe not. We will reap the benefits of loving and living Christ-like when we offer hospitality. Proverbs 3:33, the Lord's curse is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the home of the righteous. Some to go, well, what's wrong with our Bible talk? Well, is where you're hosting it a home? They can tell. They can tell. A great household is incredibly loving, and lots of fruit comes out of it. It just does. A blessed home has the presence of Christ in it. John 14:2. My Father's house has many rooms. All right. You said there wasn't any rooms. I don't know, all right? Okay. You're not getting one on your own, that's for sure. Okay? Because I'm going to come and find you and sleep over. Okay. My Father has many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. So he talks about a house. It's his Father's house. It gives the impression of it being a home. You're going to come into it. We can still have a great home here on earth. There's nothing wrong with that. You can buy a house, and I'd recommend it, and it builds great stability in the church. However, you've got to make that household great. All right? Another one, Len and Kira, great hosts. All right? If you've ever gone there, I remember meeting Len for lunch. All right? This was amazing. So he's doing his business, and I came for lunch. It was like a restaurant table prepared. And there was water, and there was even a bottle of champagne on it. I was like, now obviously we didn't drink it. I just met him for an hour's, just an hour's lunch. But I mean, it was like, and then Kira just went, okay, I'm just taking the kids off. I'm like, what? It really was. It was like, here's my restaurant. We've prepared for you. We had a nice time and stuff like that. But that's what hospitality is. A spiritual family is the cornerstone of hospitality. This little bit, take time to read, but basically it's about bringing kids up in a home. And I have to say, people like the Becks, people like Len and Kira, your kids are amazing. And we had some great talks. Len did an incredible talk about raising kids. And just the concept of really impressing, the scriptures on the disciples, on the children's heart. I don't want you to not appreciate how great of parents they are, okay? People like the Becks, you can see it in their kids, you can see it in the Wade, you've got to not take that for granted. In a world where families are falling apart, where you can overhear people go, I don't want to get married because we'll get divorced. You've got to really value those people and lift them up in your life. All right, and then point 8, maintain a kingdom-ready home. Here are a few tips to equip your hospitality. 2 Timothy 2:21. Those who cleanse themselves from the latter will be instruments for a special purpose, made holy, useful to master and prepare to do any good work. Here is my standard. Can I bring my mum to your home at any time? If I can't, why not? It's that simple. They should be able to walk into your bedroom, your bed is made, everything is put in order, everything. Why? Because if somebody studies the Bible, like Grace, and has to move in with you, brothers or sisters, and they come in and go, I ain't moving in there, then you aren't a Christian in the way that you live your life. They should go, man, this is so much better than the non-Christians I live with. You need to plan times to be hospitable. So that's why we have family times on Sunday night. You sit around. Great family time is you sit around and you go a high and a low. We have a dinner. You have a high and a low from this week. Let's talk about that. What are the plans? What are we doing this week? Who are we hosting? Who's coming over and what time? It's what Kerry and I do. Who's coming over when? When are we coming? Who's cooking then? Who's doing the food then? Is that your family time? Or you just sit there and go, all right. That's not family, all right? That's 4 singles grunting at each other, all right? So learn to cook. When we brought the mission team, I'd teach the young men to cook. On Sunday night, they come over, and because I used to be a chef, I'd teach them a couple of meals every Sunday night. Well, none of us know how to cook. Great. All sit in front of 4-minute, Jamie Oliver movies or whatever it is and learn to cook. What a great experience. Make your bed first thing in the morning before you leave. Every disciplined person that ever did anything will tell you that's one of the first things, especially if they came from the army. Keep your kitchen and living room clean. So, like those people that cook and then they eat and they leave it there and they go. All right? Let me give you a tip. If somebody does that repeatedly, you get all of that and you put it in their bed. All right? You warn them first, but it's like, amen? You don't just cook and leave everything and then leave it for somebody else. You'll have a bit of a fight and a shepherd may be called in, but they'll never do it again. All right? Keep the guest bathroom clean. Stop with supplies. All right? I know we had a laugh about the Bible talk I went into, and I sat on the toilet seat and the whole thing flew over there. I was like, you're going to Bunnings tomorrow, bro. Okay, all right. Toilet paper. Nothing more embarrassing for a visitor than running out of toilet paper, all right? We have the 3 there, and then we have the pile behind. Always clean up the house before you go to bed. In this country, people go, there's cockroaches. You know why there's cockroaches? You don't clean up every night. Cockroaches disappear if there's no food, all right? So if you clean up your house, they've got nothing to eat. And right now, we've got little ants, honestly, like you have a cup of tea, and you just, little bit of grain of sugar, like that. So God has made a natural way to disciple you, All right? So if you're complaining about ants and cockroaches, he's saying, you know what? Maybe you need to step up your cleanliness. All right? Have a roster for cleaning the house. Focusing on creating a warm welcome. Smell. Okay? Candles aren't that expensive. We have candles everywhere around our house. It's not my thing, but when my wife comes in and, clicks one on, I go, thanks, honey. It's like that guy in the fellowship who goes, need a mint? You go, I obviously do, don't I? So my wife came in last week. She bought me this big candle, brought it into my office because I work out in my office. She goes, here you go, honey. And then she left one of those lighter things. I'm like, I get the message, honey. Love you too. All right, so sisters, if you're feeling generous and you're going to some of the brothers' houses, brothers don't like candles. No, brothers need candles. And some of the sisters do too. All right. Get the rooms brightly lit. Okay, it's a bit of fun, but it's not fun living in a bad house, is it? We need to make sure everybody that comes over is loved. So if you're having people over and you don't have a spare bed and stuff, buy a sleeping bag for people to have. Okay, they're like $7 at Target. All right, have a couple of those, and if somebody needs to come over, you do not sleep on couches. That's a no-no. People that sleep on couches, the sweat goes into the couch, and the house stinks. Never let people sleep on couches. Okay, there needs to be a sheet over it, etc. It's one of the worst things you can do. All right, and I don't want to sit on your couch afterwards. All right. And then hospitality is so rewarding, enjoyable, and refreshing. You're a bit convicted tonight, aren't you? Hey, here's the truth. When you live in a great house, it's awesome. And I've lived in some good ones, and I've lived in some not so good ones. Proverbs 11:25 says, a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. If you have a really great house with people coming in and out of it the whole time, and it's a great house, it just feels fantastic. I love living in my house. I love where it is physically. We've got different areas. We have a spare bedroom. We have a couch thing that can come out. We have 2 pull-out couches so people can come. We've got spare doonas. We've got spare this. We've got spare everything. And that's how your house needs to be. And if it's not, you haven't set your heart on being a giver. And that's what it is. And I think tonight, I know we're splitting into our groups afterwards. Maybe tonight we need to split into our households and have an honest chat about where we're at. And I can't afford to fix a house. Let me tell you, you can't afford not to. And Facebook Marketplace, just put in free whatever you want, and I promise you will find it, and that's the lesson.